Hey, welcome back to Electrically Constructed. I'm Master Electrician Seth Eckel, and this is our 5th video of our Raceway calculation series. And today we're going to be going over multi-conductor cables in a Raceway. We're going to do the calculations for that, so get out your 2026 code book and let's get started. Alright guys, so before we jump into our lesson today, let's go back and answer the last challenge question I had at the end of the last video. And that question was, what are the two big code advantages of using a nipple 24 inches or less? All right, and the first answer for that would be nipples 24 inches or less may be filled to 60% fill. And the other answer, 310.15C1 adjustment factors do not apply to nipples 24 inches or less. So if you watched that video, then those answers should have came pretty easy for you. All right, but now let's get into our code book. Let's open up to chapter 9. Okay, now that we're in chapter 9, let's go to note 5 and let's see what note 5 says here. All right, for conductors not included in chapter 9, such as multi-conductor cables and optical fiber cables, the actual dimensions shall be used. So you can find those actual dimensions on the manufacturer website, or you can use one of these tools right here that you can get the dimensions off of as well. All right, next note we want to go to is note 9, and note 9 tells us that a multi-conductor cable, optical fiber cable, or flexible cord of 2 or more conductors shall be treated as a single conductor for calculating percentage conduit or tubing fill area. So what that's telling us is if we have multi-conductor cables like NM cable or SO cable or any other type of cable that has multiple wires inside of it, if it has an outer jacket holding those multiple wires, it's going to be treated as one single conductor. So when you do that, you can use the 53% fill rule from table 1. We'll get more into that in a little bit. All right, let's continue reading this. For cables that have elliptical cross sections, the cross-sectional area calculation shall be based on using the major diameter of the elliptical as a circle diameter. So what they're telling us there is, like NM cable, if you're going to get the calculation, if you're going to calculate this, you have to calculate it from the major ellipse of the cable. You can't go to the flat section and get your calculation from there. You have to go from the wide section and then use that as if it was a full circle all the way around. All right, let's keep going. Assemblies of single insulated conductors without an overall covering shall not be considered a cable when determining conduit or tubing fill area. The conduit or tubing fill for the assemblies shall be calculated based upon the individual conductors. All right, so that one is talking about if you go out and you buy some cable on a roll where the conductors are twisted up, kind of like this doorbell wire right here. I bought this, it was all on one roll. The wires twist around each other, and as I pull it off, 2 wires are being pulled off at the same time. These 2 wires are not considered a cable because they do not have an outer jacket holding them together. These would have to be calculated just like all other individual wires are calculated in chapter 9. All right, so to recap the key points of these rules here, a multi-conductor cable, optical fiber cable, or flexible cord with 2 or more conductors is treated as a single conductor. When it comes to raceway fill, if you're using a flat shaped or oval shaped cable, you have to use the widest portion of that cable for your calculation, and you cannot use individual conductors that are grouped together if they don't have an outer jacket holding them together in this calculation. All right, so let's figure out how to apply this calculation to some of the cables that we use in the field. All right, so if we go back to note 5 in chapter 9, it tells us that we have to use the actual dimensions of the cable itself. And to do that, we have to either go go to our manufacturer's website and get the actual dimensions, or we can measure it ourselves. Like I showed you before, we have a tool that can get that measurement of the diameter of the cable. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So right now, if I take this tool and go over it, I can get my actual diameter of this cable, which is 0.604. So that's this cable, 0.604. And then I'll pull out my calculator, because we can't just get the diameter. We have to find the square area that diameter is. And to get that, we have to take our diameter times 0.7854, or diameter squared times 0.7854. But because I find it easier just to multiply the diameter 2 times, that's what I do. So let's do that. 0.604 times 0.604 times 0.7854, and that's going to give us 0.2865. And then we have to compare it to the raceway that we want to use. So let's say we want to use a rigid raceway. So let's go back to chapter 4 and let's find our rigid raceway. Here we go, RMC, and we have to compare it. Now remember, we're not going to compare it to over 2 wires at 40%. We're not going to compare it to the 60% fill. We're going to compare it to the 1 wire 53% fill column. So what is the smallest raceway that we can use with 0.2865 square inches of fill? We're going to have to use, the smallest raceway is a 3/4 inch rigid raceway at 0.291. We went through that a little fast, so let's open up some slides and talk through this one more time. All right, so cable area calculation. First, we want to measure the cable outside diameter. If the cable is flat or oval, we want to use the major diameter of that cable. So just like in this picture here, we would use the largest part of the cable. We wouldn't use the flat part. And then we want to use the formula diameter times 0.7854. When we use this formula, this is going to give us the cable area in square inches. Another way to do it, if you've got a calculator that has the square inch button, you can do diameter squared times 0.7854. Let's go to the next slide. So table 4 gives us raceway area in square inches. A cable must also be converted into square inches so we can compare them. This tells us if the cable fits in the raceway. So then once you know, after you do your formula, you'll know your square inches of your cable, and then you can compare it to table 4 raceway fills. So like we just did with the rigid raceway, you can do that for all of them. All right, and then it also helps us find the smallest raceway size that works. So like I said in my last couple of videos, these slides are going to be available for you on my post on my channel. So you can go to my post and you can use these visuals to help you. You can screenshot them, save them to your computer, print them off, whatever you want to do with them. But I put these there for your convenience, so feel free to go grab them. All right, let's do one more example before we move on to the final question that I'm going to give you guys to work on your own. But let's try one more together. All right, so let's take this NM cable that I got here and let's measure this one out. Okay, and then it comes out to 0.4 exactly. So if you want, you can put it on pause, or you can work through it with me in real time. I'm gonna pull out my calculator. I'm just gonna do 0.4 times 0.4 times 0.7854, and that equals 0.1256. All right, let's go back to our code book. Let's go back to chapter 4, and let's look at, let's say we want to run this through some schedule 40 PVC. So let's find schedule 40 PVC in chapter 4. There it is right here. Let's find out what the smallest raceway we can use for this NM cable. 0.1256. We're going to use our one wire at 53% fill, and we can fit this in a 1/2 inch raceway. All right, nice. Okay, hopefully you got that right. If not, not a problem. I got one more challenge question for you guys before we go today. Here it is. What is the smallest IMC raceway that this multi-conductor cable can fit inside with a 0.650 outer diameter? All right, use the rules that you learned today, use the calculation you learned today, and drop your answer in the comments, and we'll go over it at the beginning of the next video. All right, that's all I got for you today. Stay sharp, never stop learning. God bless.